Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable.
I had joint pain, and I couldn't move like I used to.
I needed relief.
I got Cosentyx.
It helped me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Some say Odoo Business Management software is like fertilizer because of the way it promotes growth. Some say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk, scaling with you while being magically affordable. And some say Odoo's programs for manufacturing, accounting, and more are like building blocks for creating a custom software suite. But I say Odoo is all of it. Fertilizer magic beanstalk building blocks for business. Yeah, Odoo. Exactly what every business needs. Sign up at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, after working to free an innocent man for the murder of his wife, a journalist turns his attention to the plight of the real killer. Gilbert King returns for Season 2 of Bone Valley. Joining me to talk about it and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hey, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, this is Thursday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Monday's show?
Yeah, on Monday, we're going to be talking about the genre-bending true crime podcast audiobook thing from Audible.
What?
This is from Ronan Farrow. It's called Not a Very Good Murderer.
All right. And we're certain this is a podcast thing, right? On Audible? I know they make podcasts.
Well, you're just going to have to listen to it.
Okay, I'll just have to listen to it. Toby, is it true that you got fingerprinted before the show?
I did.
Why?
I was worried I might not make it back. Just for visa stuff.
Oh.
But yeah, it's all done on this electronic thing these days. And it's very fussy. So it took quite a while. I think it would have been a lot faster just to do it the old way and just take a picture and send it on. But yeah, so I went to our local police department. Police were very nice. And then spent about half an hour getting my it was between me and my wife getting our fingerprints taken on this weird little touchpad machine that was very touchy, and there was almost no way of figuring out which ones would go through and which ones wouldn't. And it was making all kinds of beeps, and it was quite something. But I also learned a lot about our local police department making small talk. There's no holding cells in our thing. There's just a bench with a bunch of handcuffs attached. So everybody just sits around with one of their hands cuffed.
Did you see Caroline from Henry's Old Band?
I did not see Caroline. She may have been.
She's a cop in your town. Yeah.
Oh, she's a cop in my town?
Yeah, she's a cop in your town. That's why I asked.
Okay, yeah. No, this was, it was not her. Yeah, so I thought maybe I should take like a funny picture of me like handcuffed to a bench, but I decided
You don't know if someone's
to.
got the key for that.
Yeah.
Exactly. It seemed like one of those
play
things
around. They wouldn't let you play.
That could quickly go wrong.
Yeah. Yes. How does one announce themselves when they show up at the police department to get fingerprinted?
Well, we called ahead and said, hey, we need to get fingerprinted. And they said, well, just come by any time.
So now you're in the system.
Do they ask why?
How about 5 minutes? Yeah, they do, because there's a whole bunch of different reasons to get fingerprinted. They have a drop-down menu, but apparently for a visa is not one of the things. So there was some conversation about, like, how do you code it? for that, because there's nothing that says, travel documents or anything like that, at least on this system. So I think what we came down to law enforcement, because it was being sent to the FBI for the clearance.
They've been using fingerprints to try and solve crimes for a very long time, right?
Yep.
How did they know that there were not two fingerprints alike? How do they know that?
When they said that, they looked at all of them.
Yep. There's some guy who just, every time there's somebody newborn, they take them and they compare them to all the other fingerprints of anybody else who's ever lived.
The guy who said the thing about snowflakes also said that about fingerprints.
Yes. Because I don't know if that's true either. That sounds like it could be a bullshit thing that someone just said, and we're like, we just accept it as truth.
Well, I think you probably accept it as truth until suddenly there's two of the same.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, fuck, well, I guess not.
Yeah.
But it does seem like one of those things where even if like one every 150 years somebody is born with the same fingerprint, it's probably fine. You're
probably
really,
all 10 being the same is an impossibility, is what I'm guessing, a statistical impossibility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you narrow shit down, but I don't feel like that's considered like conclusive proof though anymore. Because now you hear it's like, oh, well, DNA, as long as we have the DNA evidence, then we can exonerate somebody. But you never hear them say, well, if we have the fingerprint evidence.
Yeah. Well, that plays into the Schofield case, which is an excellent transition into the thing we're about to talk about. Is it not, Kevin?
Yes. Sometimes you can have a fingerprint and a confession, and it makes no good difference.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially when all the evidence has been destroyed. All right, leading off.
I'm saying he didn't do it now. That's what I mean. He didn't do it.
Jeremy Scott told me in terrifying detail how he was the one who killed Michelle Schofield.
So she gave me a ride, and that's when I guess I lost it then.
When Jeremy Scott confessed that he, and not Leo Schofield, murdered Michelle Schofield in 1987, the state of Florida refused to believe him. Journalist Gilbert King's quest to exonerate Leo drew him closer into Jeremy's background and the family who drifted away from him.
But within that time, my dad was free, and he was still with my mom, and they had me. So if the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
Convinced the key to clearing Leo's name included proving Jeremy's involvement in a separate unsolved murder, King doubled down on his investigation, turning up new leads. But the effort brought King new understanding of the convict as he takes stock of his life and contemplates the consequences of his actions.
This happened, bro. I really did.
I just hated that this happened, bro. I really did. At that moment, with Jeremy standing at the telephone, surrounded by other inmates, I realized this might be his apology.
In season 2 of the critically acclaimed podcast series Bone Valley, King focuses on the man responsible for Leo's wrongful conviction and develops an unlikely connection. He also works as a kind of advocate for Jeremy, working to set the record straight about his many crimes and do right by the many people he's hurt, including Leo Schofield. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about significant plot points from season 2 of Bone Valley. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So one of the things, Laura, that I wanted to talk about in our discussion about this is Gilbert King, right? And his ability to have the listener develop empathy, I would say for anyone, right?
Right.
If you can develop empathy and feelings for a man who has confessed to brutally murdering people for, we know that he was doing gay bashing when he was young. We know that, he was just really fucked up. And yet Gilbert is able to build a life and a story around him and build a connection with him that makes like us feel connected to him too. And that's like a magic trick, right?
It is. It's it's something I think a lot about in my day job, because I deal with a lot of folks that are incarcerated that have done or accused of doing really awful things. And my friends are often saying to me the same thing, like, how do you have empathy for people that, and I'm like, well, once you kind of understand where somebody has come from, you don't necessarily condone what they've done, but you understand how they landed where they landed.
I found myself in an unusual position, the bridge between a multiple murderer and the 35-year-old son he'd never met. I never thought I'd end up here. So I want to tell you the story of how I did.
For me, listening to this, I always really appreciate when you can find a way to really show that empathy. Because it's like I get a new case and I'm like, oh, this person, I can't believe what they're charged with. But then it's like you listen to Gilbert and he goes in. And the part where I started to develop the empathy for Jeremy, when you hear about his education level,
yeah,
and you hear about Gilbert sending him books and how he had like a 4th grade reading level or whatever it was. I mean, it was like, this is the lens that this person is approaching their life through. This person doesn't really know how to read, but they don't want to say that because that's making them vulnerable.
I think he's learned, though, don't you think?
He has, and he has. And I have to tell you, it's very hard when you are like approaching the justice system as black and white to see that there's gray. And I think that Gilbert does a very good job in the way that he develops relationships with people and then shows you those relationships to show you that it's not necessarily black and white. There's gray here. There's still a human here. Yeah. This human may have done something really horrible, but there's still a person, right?
Yeah. I don't want to underestimate Kelsey's role in this because they are a team. Toby, what do you think of this team and what they're able to elicit from people they interview and also from us?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of echo what Laura was saying, is I feel like Gilbert and Kelsey, I mean, they must personally have a lot of empathy and compassion towards people. I think the only other person I think who conveys that as well in sort of our little area of podcasting is Connie Walker.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that really makes this work, quite honestly, without being able to sort of be that as a person and then be able to convey that through the podcast. Because Jeremy is a tough person to feel compassionate for, because it doesn't seem as though he felt that way in his life. And as a matter of fact, if he wasn't in prison, I think it would be hard to feel that way about him now, because from the account you get here, as compassionate as it is, he was just an extremely violent, scary guy to the point where his wife thought that she'd be dead if he wasn't arrested, that there was nothing in his eyes anymore. I mean, I think that's the thing. And I think that's what kind of separates Gilbert and Kelsey from a lot of other people. Not that other people are trying to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, but I think the combination of sort of their vision of what they want to get across and then their ability to sort of execute that. I mean, it sounds very sort of clinical when I say it that way, but I don't think it's clinical at all. But I think the approach and the way they are able to turn that approach into the podcast that you listen to, you know, I don't know if there's a whole lot of people who could have turned this story into something where you came away feeling, you know, even if it's just sort of shades of gray towards Jeremy, it would be very easy just to fully condemn him.
Right.
Because while he was free, there's not a whole lot redeemable. And it seems like once he was in prison, things changed. The tragedy being that doesn't matter how much he changes in prison, he's never getting out.
Right. And he's resigned to that. So, Kevin, this is what I always think about when I was listening to this podcast and when I think about Gilbert and Kelsey, right? They successfully finished a story, right? They reported a story very deeply. It took them years to do. It ended in a man getting released from prison. And the story arc was essentially closed, right? And I've been wondering like what they've been doing after that. And I'm like, is Kelsey still making a living doing podcasting? God, I hope so. She's so good at it. But they came back with this sort of second chapter, this coda to the Leo Schofield story. Do you think it can stand on its own as a piece of reporting? I mean, it sounds like they're working on this for a long time too. You hear tape from like 2023 in this.
Yeah, I mean, even farther back than that. Yeah, I mean, very few podcasts have succeeded at a second season, and almost none of them had any success continuing the original story. There were a couple of, I guess you'd call them bonus episodes from season 1 that followed Leo's parole hearings and that kind of stuff. And, you know, just to remind everybody, Leo has not been exonerated of the crime of murdering his wife, Michelle, even though Jeremy has confessed and there's evidence to corroborate that.
Solid evidence.
Pretty solid evidence, including a confession, but what was his fingerprints? Yeah.
On the steering wheel.
Steering wheel, the car.
He knows facts that no one else knows about the cases.
Yeah, absolutely. But few podcasts have been able to sort of advance the story, and this is able to do so. The whole thing is that it's really Leo's story, and in a way I kind of missed Leo's presence in some of the earlier episodes, but it does open up this world that we didn't get to see in season 1, and that was kind of left unexplored, which is Jeremy's story. So he was more than just the antagonist. He becomes sort of a sympathetic anti-hero to some ways, and that's to the strength of Gilbert and his writing. And I think what we didn't really appreciate, and I'm just starting to appreciate now, is Gilbert's presence as a character himself.
Yes.
we're all sitting here going around and, you guys are talking about like, very few other people could do it. And it's not just that. He brings a different kind of, I don't want to say vibe to it, but he's smart and dogged and also empathetic and can write the fuck out of copy. And it's true because there are certain people that can bring something to nothing.
Right.
A Dan Taberski can make chicken salad out of chicken shit. And Gilbert's got some good stuff to work with here. And he does do the magic trick, Rebecca, where he, really makes you feel things for Jeremy and for all of his estranged family and whatnot.
This is what I was thinking about listening to this, is that Gilbert does bend the traditional rules of journalism, a lot of which are bullshit rules anyway. Journalism is really changing. There's an acknowledgement now that journalists are human beings. Objectivity is a faux construct made up by old white men like in the 1800s or whatever. But Gilbert is willing to become a part of the narrative. And as a result of that, his source building is incredible. Like he can, we just watched that stupid Happy Face show, and the main character in that show is supposed to be this person that people are willing to talk to, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just fake, because what really you need to do is spend years of your life, tremendous amount of time in your life and money. If you think about the fact that Gilbert has maintained a relationship with every single person that he has spoken to for this whole story, because you hear him. I've been writing to him. I'm sending him books.
He likes James Patterson and Stephen King. He likes some Western writers. I sent him Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it don't make no sense how they kill all them kids off like that.
I know.
And the only ones left is the two girls and that one little boy.
It's incredible commitment, not just to the story, but to the people in the story. Like he wants to do right by them, even if he's telling their story in a difficult way. Like that sheriff dude, Laura, who was like a villain in season 1. Like, we hear from him and he's like driving around with him. So what do you think about the source building that we're able to hear here?
Well, I think that's awesome. That was something that I actually kind of took away from this, because I was thinking about Jamie, Justin's mother, and how he's been trying to talk to her since the season 1. And the sheriff, who is portrayed as, like you said, a villain in season 1, who then reaches out to him on like Facebook and is like, "You're my favorite author. I've been listening to the podcast." And then is out driving around with him, chitty chatting. Because I think what comes through is that you are going to be treated fairly. And you're going to be treated fairly in the way that I'm going to let you tell your story. I'm not going to express my judgment. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to allow you to be. And that you can trust that what you're telling me is going to be treated with care, so that people come to trust him. And they know, if I've talked to him and I've told him this is what he's actually going to report. He's not going to twist. He's not going to fabricate. He's not going to manipulate to make a good story. He's actually going to tell the real story. That really came through with Jamie. It talks about, finally, when she finally sits down and talks with him. And that's a skill. And I think it's a skill that we see with Connie Walker. And it's a skill that really, I think people need to feel seen when you're talking to them, when you're interviewing them. And people need to know that, yes, you're there for a story, but you know that they're a person. And I think that comes through with him in the way that he approaches his sources.
Toby, let's talk about Buddy Shepard a little bit more. I mean, we heard him in the first season. He was the guy who was adamant that Dan Odie was the killer of the taxi driver. He, forced people to make confessions. And then he reaches out to Gilbert, like Laura said, and says, "You're my favorite writer," and invites him to come to his home and meet his dog, and they hang out. I mean, what do you think about this guy?
He's a character.
Yeah.
He's so different than I think what we're used to hearing about as far as law enforcement who come to a conclusion and then are just absolutely dogged about it and sort of see journalists as the enemy and trying to undermine their authority. So he's willing to at least re-examine it, right? Which is far more than...
Unfortunately, he's not the sheriff anymore, so I'm not going to be able to do anything
But still, like even these interviews with these prosecutors on these things years and years afterwards, we're like, "Oh, we got the right guy," or whatever. And other than in the Happy Face from earlier this week, where the guy was like, "Oh, well, I guess you're innocent. You can go now." It's interesting, and it's kind of, he's not really funny or anything, but he's at least interesting in a way that's not sort of overwhelmed by the tragedy of all the events and the personalities that are involved in this story.
I'll never forget seeing that boy's eyes.
That was eerie. His eyes were open.
Wow.
His eyes were open. I could see the whites of his eyes and even his pupils. And
I think that stays with you, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I don't get like where he's coming from though, because in the end, I guess you're right. Like the best he can come up with is saying, yeah, he would have been a suspect, or he's a good suspect. I'd open my mind about that. But still, he is from season 1. He nearly put this innocent guy away because he threatened all these other witnesses. And it doesn't acknowledge any of that, right? That he almost got the wrong person on death row because of like the bad police work. But now to say, oh yeah, well, this guy could have been also, the guy, like, I just feel like it's a half measure. But we go full force when we get you stuff on Patreon.
That's true. No half measures on Patreon.
Absolutely not.
We're in the business section.
In the previous month of April.
Yeah.
How many episodes did we put out on Patreon?
100.
How many days in April?
30.
We did 25 episodes.
Whoa.
Plus a video and a couple of posts, and you get all sorts of great stuff. We are just like burning the midnight oil, and that's the 4 of us here doing all sorts of stuff, including the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. The latest one is talking about the book American Prison. Laura Bricker has her own podcast called Leave It to Bricker, in which she solves mysteries. Usually as a pet detective, she's going out helping her neighbors find their cats. This time, Laura had to do it for herself when Zelda got out. And then Rebecca Lavoie has the Readathon, which is the ongoing Karen Reed trial.
More than once a week, several times a week podcast.
Coming at once testimony closes for the day, Rebecca starts recording and she gets all of her hot takes. That's one way you can support us and get all sorts of great content. It's at Patreon. Another way to support us is on Amazon. You know what Amazon is, right? We have an Amazon storefront, so you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, can you tell us, what are this week's Crime Writers on Amazon recommendations?
Well, Kevin, I bought one specific thing on Amazon this week. I think I just bought one thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you can imagine that, a week with just buying one thing.
What's that?
It was because you were making margaritas the other night, and we were almost out of that stupid salt that comes in that container that you can dip the glass in.
Yeah.
So I bought a new thing of Jose Cuervo margarita salt from Amazon, and it even had last time you purchased it, like May 2022. I'm like, oh, summer assault. Here we are again.
We've been using the same margarita salt for 3 years,
That's right.
people.
That's right. See, we're not heavy drinkers. It takes us 3 years, and there's still plenty in there. It just doesn't really dip well anymore,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing about Amazon is
I suppose we could have just put some new salt in the same container.
We also could have gone to the fucking grocery store and just bought. But that's the convenience of Amazon. Also, Toby has his list that's inspired by your purchases, listeners. It's Toby Ball's Deep Cut recommendations. Toby, what are this week's Deep Cut recommendations?
I'm going to start off with this, and maybe someone can explain it to me. Healing Hands Women's Underscrubbed Soft Knit Melissa Long Sleeve Scrub Tee with breathable and easy care fabric pack of 2-5047 Navy/white XL.
Oh.
That's for a nurse.
Oh.
You know when you go to the hospital and nurses are wearing sometimes
they're
like
wearing
long sleeve
scrubs.
t-shirt underneath their scrubs?
Oh.
That's what it's for.
I thought it was
it could be for a doctor too.
I thought it was like scrubby because it's right beneath the one that says scrub
it's
sponges.
It's like the Scrub Daddy thing.
So I thought maybe it was like...
No, it's a t-shirt for under a set of scrubs. I only know this because my future daughter-in-law is an ICU med-surg nurse, and she put some of those on her Christmas list.
Okay. Because I'm thinking about maybe making a t-shirt that's made out of the scrubby end of a...
Scrub Daddy? Yeah.
Yeah, a sponge.
A loofah sweater?
Just like a sweater made of those like happy face
You just take
things.
a plate and you just rub it on your stomach and it gets clean.
That'd be amazing.
I would get that.
So, and if you want to buy that, one thing you might want to do beforehand is get an Amazon.com gift card balance reload. We had a few of those.
Is that it, Toby?
Oh, I can do another one. Amazon Basics Soft and Strong 2-ply toilet paper.
Ooh.
6 ultra rolls equals, get this, 24 regular rolls.
Whoa. How does it even fit on the toilet paper
One
holder?
roll to 4 rolls is hard to believe. Anyway, it's unscented, 340 sheets.
Whoa.
I don't know how many trips that is.
340.
Do you think it's the size of the ones that like you see in the stall at like some institution? Like the giant paper.
Giant brown.
But those are 1-ply. These are 2-ply.
I don't know. That wouldn't fit on my toilet paper holder. Like we have one that's like vertical that sticks out from the. If we tried to put that on there, I mean, maybe that's how our toilet paper holder broke.
Maybe the person who purchased this could send us a picture.
I'd love that. I would love that.
That roll is
giant, but also 2-ply. These are the days of miracle and wonder. Yeah.
Kevin Flynn.
Yes, hold on. Just to let you know, to get all that stuff, you got to go to amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. Type it in once, it'll always be there.
That can be your Amazon link.
Yeah, we earn commissions on qualified purchases.
All right, Kevin, before we end the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Dave and Sarah Jones and Angela Jones.
Oh, my goodness.
Keep up with the Joneses and join us on Patreon.
Can I just make one point about our Patreon before we end this?
Sure.
We make this show available for free to everyone. We can only do that because people support us on Patreon. And that's why we work so hard to make so much stuff back there, because we're doing that all so that we can all afford to work on this show. Like, that's honestly the truth, right, Kevin?
Yes.
All right, so let's leave it there. And thank you so much to the Joneses, all of you, for supporting us on Patreon. So, Kevin.
Yes.
Who's the sponsor for this episode of Crime Writers On?
Oh, we welcome a new sponsor. It's Rula Health.
Ooh.
Finding the right mental health care should be simple and affordable, but for many, it is not. You got long wait times and high costs, and so that means like finding the right provider, it can really make getting help feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so that's where Rula comes in. Rula connects you with in-network licensed therapists that accept most major insurance, right? So it has been a very trying time for many people.
Yes.
And I always say, you don't maybe necessarily want to take everything that you're feeling
and put it on Facebook in a post?
Yeah, or tell your sister who's going to go because she might be the problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so like you really want to talk to a professional, find somebody that you're comfortable with. That's where Rula comes in. They partner with a network of over 10,000 therapists and psychiatrists nationwide, enabling you to find your personalized solution and the right therapist for you based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements. So every therapist is carefully vetted, so you are in expert hands. And for the in-network covered care for most major insurances, you pay for as little as $15 per session.
Wow. So join the thousands who have already turned to Rula for support on their journey to better mental health and well-being. Getting started is so easy. Just visit rula.com/CWO.
CWO.
Today. That's RULA.com/CWO.
CWO.
To connect with a licensed therapist who truly cares. Your mental health matters. Individual costs depend on your insurance and deductible. Kevin.
Yes, Rebecca.
Who's the next sponsor for this program?
Okay, we're brought to you by our friends at Hello Fresh.
Hello Fresh.
Hola Fresco. That's what you used to say all the time.
I know, hola Fresco.
Yeah, so fresh air, sunshine, and good food. That is what spring is all about.
Mm-hmm.
You just opened up the deck here. We got that little picnic place to sit. Need to have
You mean my sophisticated outdoor table, Kevin?
Yeah. So we need to make some stuff quick. Bring it right out there. HelloFresh makes it easy for those home-cooked meals. They take no time at all.
Plate it up beautifully.
They've got great recipes like pasta primavera, chicken Dijon, and pecan-crusted trout.
Yum.
As well as over 100 seasonal snacks, sides, and treats. Well, the final kid, we kicked him out.
Yes. We're empty nesters now.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really kick him out, but like it was time to go. And
he moved across town.
So you know what that means? An adjustment to the meal plan, which was so very easy to do at HelloFresh. Plus, they are also able to get us, items that we can take a little more time to make, but on the nights when we're recording,
boom, nice meal.
Nice meal.
Feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
Right now to get 10 free meals.
10 free meals.
With a free item for life. That's HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM. One free item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. Kevin, who's the next sponsor for this program?
Oh, we're brought to you by our friends at Quince.
My best friends at Quince, you mean?
Yeah, look, we've been talking about sweaters, but now as the temperatures climb, it's easy to fall into the same old routine. Those familiar tank tops, worn-in shorts, worn-out shorts. the usual lineup, but Quince offers an effortless upgrade, elevated, easy prices that instantly refine the everyday uniform without the extra effort. So Quince is able to provide at great prices, couture, items that look great when you're out walking around. But Rebecca, you like the stuff that Quince offers that nobody gets to see.
That's right. Kevin, I just got some underwear from Quince, and it is rad. And it was so inexpensive. It was like a pack of underwear for like a really low price. I also did order a linen shirt, by the way. But the underwear is spectacular. It's got 5-star reviews for a reason. I endorse it personally.
Yeah, but don't forget, you still can get great things for the summer, like European linen shorts and dresses.
And
from
shirts.
$30. Italian leather platform sandals.
Nice.
And so much more. And they cut out the middleman so they can pass the savings on to you.
Hell yeah. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime. Laura, can you talk about Mary? This is the woman who, because she heard about Jeremy on season 1, I think. He talked about not having any money in his account. We heard that piece of tape of that horrible prosecutor, Victoria Avalon, one of the greatest podcast villains of all time, saying, you don't have soap or deodorant, do you? You can't even buy that. And she ended up, putting $20 in his account so that he could buy those essentials. And then now she's become his corresponding pal. What do you think about her?
Yeah, I think this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning about like the ability to find empathy for other people. So a lot of times when we hear about women writing men in prison, it's like prison romance, like that show I watch, Love After Lockup. That's not what this is. This is a woman who, she's like a house cleaner. She listens to Gilbert's podcast while she's cleaning houses. I mean, it's really sad when you hear that somebody literally can't get deodorant or soap in prison because they don't have any family members anymore. They don't have any friends that are putting money on their commissary account. So when you hear her sort of evolution of this relationship that she has with Jeremy, she sends him the $20 thinking it's no big deal. And he sends her a letter and it's on like a half piece of paper because that's all he has. Because again, he doesn't have any money. Also, he hasn't written anything in years because the last person that actually had something to do with him was his grandmother who has died.
Right.
Do you remember the first letter, what you said to him?
I think it was right around Christmas. And I don't know, I just said that I thought he had done the right thing to confess what he had done. I knew it had to be hard and that I felt bad because he had said he felt like he slept with ghosts that night.
They progress to, talking. And then she's filling kind of the role of like almost like a surrogate mother or a surrogate aunt. And she's counseling him on how to speak to his son, Justin. And they're kind of going back and forth on that. And I think she was also kind of questioning, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing writing to this guy? Like, what is happening here? But I think, again, it goes back to, I think my theme of this whole show and like what I've talked about is like humanity. And you know what? There's still a person there. And I think, you hear about how he's like washing his own clothes. And she's talking about that because like if he sends his clothes out, his regular clothes don't come back. But in the beginning, he's so unaccustomed to having anybody look out for him that he's giving her like an invoice of everything. Like I spent 25 cents on toothpaste this, whatever it is that he spent money on. So for me, it really continued that humanizing of Jeremy as this is going on, as this sort of follow-up is going on. And she was an interesting person because you always wonder, like, who are the people that write to somebody in prison? Because sometimes, just for fun, if there's somebody I don't like, I want to go online and sign them up for one of those prison pen pal services and see who writes to them.
Yeah.
And then be like, but I would never do that, of course.
No, because you're a nice person.
Because I'm a nice person. But in this case, you hear a woman who is actually a nice person who's kind of like looking at her own life and how this began because she's listening and she's like, this poor dude doesn't have deodorant,
Yeah. Kevin, what do you think about Mary? I mean, I found myself thinking, listening to the episode, this episode shouldn't work, right? She's literally just reading letters. It's like the bulk of the episode. What do you think about her?
Yeah, it was actually, you're right. Like, this was a really well-crafted episode. And maybe, I don't want to say it's a standalone because...
It felt like a standalone.
Because, the focus ends up kind of moving away from the action. But Mary's sort of like And she really does fascinate me. She's kind of like the stand-in for many of the true crime listeners who empathize with the figures. But you would think, after listening to Bone Valley, that she would empathize the most with Leo. But she has this affinity for Jeremy. Why? Because he is a killer who is humiliated because of his hygiene. That's a very unexpected turn of emotions. And
can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
We also learn in season 1 that there's an excellent chance that he is the way he is because he was neglected as a kid, and that he like hit his head. Remember he was dropped or something, and he had this. So I think that we got a little more than, he's broken for like a reason. Like that came across to me in season 1.
Yeah, it's like if Mary can feel sympathy for him, then we as the audience can too. That's one of the things that she's able to bring to us, and that Gilbert and the team are able to sort of make the most out of.
I want to go back to this prosecutor, Victoria Avalon, Toby. We'd heard in season 1 that the state of Florida didn't believe his confessions, that they said he recanted all of them. We hear the scene in this season about why they think that. And it's because Victoria Avalon showed him a photo that she didn't show anybody else. She just showed it to him at a hearing, and he said, I didn't do that.
I didn't hear that answer. No, I didn't do that.
I wanted to know what picture Avalon had showed him and what Jeremy really meant when he said, no, I didn't do that.
Yeah, show me a naked picture.
Picture of Michelle?
Yeah.
What do you think about that scene and what we learned there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. What happens is that Jeremy is shown a naked picture of Michelle, and his response on looking at it, according to the podcast, is the implication is that he raped her.
Mm-hmm.
So when he says he didn't do that, he was saying, A, I didn't rape her, which, is consistent with the evidence in the case. And then the second thing was she wasn't naked when he left her.
Yeah.
So he was more commenting on sort of the implication and then also the condition of the body rather than the actual act itself. But, the prosecution was like, okay, so he's recanting. He said he didn't do it. And the judge was willing to take that. I assume the judge knew. Who knows? But you would assume the judge knew what had happened and was willing to kind of take this very broad approach to that statement.
Keep in mind, the judge didn't see the photo. Only he saw the photo.
Right.
It was like a trick. It was a trick.
It was a trick. I wasn't sure if the judge knew what the photo contained.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So then in that case, it was just pulling the wool over his eyes and just being like, I showed the photo of the victim. He said I didn't do it, so he recanted.
Yeah. Laura, we hear in the podcast, and I guess Gilbert rolls all the time. He's rolling tape all the time, right? We hear that he's giving this talk in Florida. Leo shows up. The audience gets to meet him and talk to him. He drives away on his motorcycle. And granted, he wasn't in the accident that night, but it is a very apt scene because we learned he's in this horrible accident where he could have died. He's now home recuperating. Gilbert walks in, rolling, captures this conversation he's having with him. And at just that moment, Jeremy happens to call Gilbert.
Right.
And we have on tape, they're speaking to each other for the first time.
You got a lot of people that care about you now because you did the right thing. And it means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family. And I thank you for that. And I thank you with all my heart, bud.
I thank you, bro.
What were your thoughts about that moment and what it says about, the idea of restorative justice?
Yeah, I'm like, my God, you couldn't have asked for better timing on that, number one. But a lot of times when we talk about restorative justice, we're talking about the victim of a crime being able to forgive the person that was responsible for the crime, being able to sit down and have a conversation, being able to see that person that committed the crime go through some sort of therapy or alternative program, or being able to kind of acknowledge what happened. It's like usually this meeting between the perpetrator and the victim. But in this case, it's the meeting between these two men that have both been incarcerated, one wrongfully accused, one the person who is now taking responsibility for the crime that the other one was accused of. But the one who was wrongfully accused, not only wrongfully accused, but now he's like laying in his living room. He's had like some crazy fracture. Like they're like, he's had a book fracture. They described it of his pelvis. It sounded horrible. He's in extreme pain. He's in a bad way. And in that moment, though, is like, Gilbert's like, do you want to talk to this guy? And he's like, yeah. And so he talks to Jeremy and basically he's able to say, I forgive you. And that may seem small, but when you think about that act of being able to actually connect with that person who was responsible for you being in prison all these years and being able to genuinely say, I forgive you, that the therapeutic value of that is tremendous because yes, there's a way to go, but it's like closure. It's like freeing. It's like being able to actually kind of put that part, because you're not holding on to that resentment and that anger. You're saying, I forgive you. I just couldn't believe it happened the way it did. I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like he walks in and he calls. I'm like,
yeah.
What?
And they had this connection of this one man who was in the ministry program who then knew Jeremy. Yeah. Kevin, what are your thoughts about that scene?
Yeah, I also thought that was like the climax of this series. And it was powerful because in that sort of stoic guy, emotionless kind of way, it means a lot to both of them, although they can't really articulate that. But there is a strange bond between them, right? And you got to remember that there was a moment where Leo nearly had the opportunity to kill.
That's right, when they passed each other in that hallway.
Yes, yeah. Were it not for one of the corrections officers, I think, who stepped in and could see it coming. And then you have this here, and I probably, Leo's able to extend some grace because where he is now, he's no longer in prison. And he's even talked a lot about the empathy that he has for Jeremy, when he sort of learned his story. And for Jeremy, he has, throughout this process, talking with Gilbert, you see that he has wanted to do something better for himself and for others around him. And he has expressed throughout his regrets about what he did to Leo. And this isn't quite exactly a shot at redemption here, a request for absolution. But it did mean a lot to whatever it is to actually have a kind of conversation and to say something that is kind to one another. And it's almost kind of like that they want to do it again at some point. I thought it was really great because I think I also would have, if this had not been part of the podcast, I would have said, there's something missing here as far as a resolution of these two plot lines. And I think we got it.
Kevin, before we finish up, do you want to just talk about the craft of the closing credits of this show?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever talked about any of the final credits before, but, instead of doing this thing, the last thing is going to be the letters between Justin and Jeremy. Some podcasts would just be playing that and have some thoughtful music tinkling in the background, and then they would slide into the closing credits. And they sort of start that, and then Gilbert comes in and interspersed, he's giving the credits that they'd been giving all along, and then they were kind of like playing it over one another, and so it made me like want to A, listen to the credits.
Smart.
Yeah. B, it cued my brain to be like, oh no, it's almost over. It's ending. It's, and I just thought like, hey man, that was a really interesting way of sort of ending the whole thing and, keeping your attention to the very last second.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
The psychological thriller Criminal Minds Evolution is back, and the hunt is on. This season, the criminal profilers from the Behavioral Analysis Unit are tracking a network of serial killers connected by something far more dangerous than anyone expected. It's the kind of high-stakes investigation that will keep you guessing and make you question who's really pulling the strings. With edge-of-your-seat storytelling, this is the season to watch. Catch the new season of Criminal Minds Evolution, now streaming exclusively on Paramount+.
Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable.
I had joint pain, and I couldn't move like I used to.
I needed relief.
I got Cosentyx.
It helped me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTIX or Cosentix.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Contemplates.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and they're all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out season 2 of the podcast that made all of our top 3 lists a couple years ago, Bone Valley. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for Bone Valley?
Yeah, I'm going thumbs up at this. If you didn't listen to Bone Valley, you're going to be like, what is going on here?
It will make no sense.
Bone Valley.
I don't know what this podcast is about. This guy, Jeremy. I think if you listen to Bone Valley and you're curious where people are now and how things are playing out now with not only Leo, but also Jeremy, who, takes responsibility for this crime in season 1 and kind of seeing how this story progresses, I think this is really interesting. And I think what I loved about it was the way that Gilbert and Kelsey were able to really humanize the people that were involved in this, people that were involved in the criminal justice system, people that obviously have done things that they are not proud of, done things that would horrify a lot of people, and really tell their story in a way without judgment that allows you to make your own decisions. But it was just, I think there was some really interesting things in here. There was stories about family. There was stories about, I say restorative justice, but this wasn't the type of restorative justice we typically hear about with a crime victim and the perpetrator. It was different, but it was still restorative, and I'm going to say reparative in the way that these relationships were allowed to kind of commingle as this podcast went forward. So this was a thumbs up from me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for season 2 of Bone Valley?
Yeah, so to me, this kind of felt like a very meaty coda to the first season. Really high marks, A+ podcasting marks for Kelsey and Gilbert. I think what they do as far as embodying compassion and empathy and being able to get that across in the podcast is good. For me, I just didn't feel like there were payoffs as much as I would have liked. And to their credit, they don't create false payoffs. I mean, I think all the payoffs that come are definitely earned. But for me, they were few and kind of far between. And I found that some of it was, for me, kind of slow. The last time I kind of felt this way was right in the middle of S-Town, when I was like, some people are going to think that this is their favorite episode. And for me, it was my least favorite. This is the kind of thing where when they talk about stories that come from the heart, I think this is the kind of story that people talk about. And I don't necessarily connect with those that well. I'm not sure what that says about me.
We all know what that means about you, Toby.
I think there's some people who will really, really love this, and, with good reason. For me, I just felt it was two people who are really, really good at their craft with a story that they were doing because it was connected to a previous story. And while there was definitely interesting stuff, there's interesting tape. It had me thinking about a lot of things. The payoffs for me weren't quite there. The climactic thing didn't quite hit me the way I think it hit some other people. So I'm kind of a mild thumbs up on this for what it's worth.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up on this. It did start a little slow for me, and I was getting sort of vibes of something like season 2 of The Letter, because there is a lot of, sort of background on Jeremy that we're kind of jumping into right away. But, this brings us to probably the only thing that was sort of left out of Bone Valley, an exceptional podcast. Season 2, it's obviously never going to live up to that. It's not quite as an investigative journey, though we do get an episode like that. What makes this really good is the way that Gilbert is able to really get down not only to the investigative side of things, but to the human truth side of things, and make us feel compassion for people who, on the face, do not deserve it, but we're able to give it to them anyway. And sort of, the way that these things affect different people. On Monday, when we talked about the dramatized version of Happy Face, similar themes here. What does it mean when you are the child of a killer, and what does that say about you?
It was just like Happy Face in so many ways.
Well, you don't step on me here. But we brought some really interesting characters here. It's thoughtful, and I don't think we give enough credit to Gilbert King for making it what it is, to really elevate this with excellent reporting, excellent writing, and actually being a really interesting presence in the different scenes that we have here, and bringing all of this alive. So for me, if you could listen to one podcast, it should be Bone Valley Season 1. But this is a great way to not think of it as a separate season or a continuation of the investigation. It really is more like a wrap-up, a final chapter, an epilogue, if you will, to a really fantastic story here, and I think there's a good payoff at the end.
Yeah, I'm giving it a thumbs up too. I think it's an epilogue as well. And I think that if listeners are expecting a fully fleshed out season of an investigation where there are huge revelations, that's not what this is. This is a hypnotic journey. And I think that Gilbert, in his voice and the way his writing, is extremely hypnotic. And that's why I use that word. And what he and Kelsey accomplish here is the fallout, basically, from not just for the people, but from season 1. We know about Jeremy Scott because of season 1. Leo is out and was able to get into that motorcycle accident because of season 1. This is a fallout story, right? In many ways. And going deeper into this killer's mind and the people who he hurt, and finding ways to give that a different kind of view. It's really something like we said in the review that only a few people can do. Connie Walker, Madeline Barron, and Gilbert King would be my 3. So I am a thumbs up on this. I would set listeners' expectations. Don't expect season 1 of Bone Valley Part 2. This is a epilogue. It's like as Kevin said, it's a final chapter. And for what it is, I think it's outstanding. I would listen to anything that Gilbert and Kelsey make. I think if they want to make a podcast about Happy Valley, the TV show, I'd probably listen to it. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
We have a dog.
Oh, my favorite.
And I don't know. Thankfully, Kevin has clued me in on why this dog is relevant to the current state of the world.
Mm-hmm.
This dog, Chloe, and apparently Chloe is the dog who likely mauled John O'Keefe's arm in the Karen Reed case.
Yeah.
I know nothing about the Karen Reed case. I'm overwhelmed with regular criminal justice, so I haven't been able to take it in. But here we go. Coming to us from Emma Lambeth, in honor of Chloe being part Malinois, I'd like to nominate Mal, her Malinois, called Tinkerbell.
Nice.
In her 3rd weekend showing, she went winner's bitch, best of opposite sex, and best of breed owner handler.
Wow.
They are super awesome, athletic dogs. They definitely aren't for everyone. Y'all are the best. Keep doing what you're doing. And here is a picture of this dog. And the lady that's giving out the ribbons has kind of like a Bob Ross vibe sort of shirt on.
Yeah.
And this dog is looking good. So here we go.
I like your measured approach when you said Chloe allegedly mauled John O'Keefe's dog. Good job, journalist. Good job.
Well, I don't know.
Best bitch, yeah.
I'm probably the least informed about the Karen Reed case of anybody.
That's why you got to come on the readathon. All right.
I know.
All right, Laura Bricker. If folks want to say hi to you on social media, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Blue Sky and Instagram.
What about you, Toby? How can you be found online?
At TobyBallNH on Blue Sky.
Kevin Kevin Flynn.
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn, and Colin was in the house. In my opinion.
It's my opinion that something went down in the garage. You can follow me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On, and I encourage you to follow our TikTok. It's really heating up. People really like it. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll also get the after show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, plus the Readathon. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the really terrific Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is sitting next to me in a blue shirt, and his name is Kevin. This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also don't eat the white bread after it's been soaked in baked bean juice.
Yeah.
Never, never, never.
Nope.
On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
We didn't even do a lot of Bone Valley jokes when we recorded that.
Bone Valley.
Bone Valley.
Yes.
Who would like to go back to Bone Valley?
Well, it depends. Which Bone Valley you're talking about.
Return to Bone Valley.
Return to Bone Valley. You couldn't get enough Bone Valley last time. Well, buckle up.
Yeah.
We're going back. Next week, though, we
It's
have...
not very long, this version of Bone Valley, though, is it?
No, but it's satisfying. It's enough to
It's
get...
a meaty Bone Valley.
It's not big, but it's enough to get the job done.
That's right. Motion of the ocean.
Partners in Crime Media. Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable.
I had joint pain, and I couldn't move like I used to.
I needed relief.
I got Cosentyx.
It helped me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from will I to why not. For over 130 years, we've been innovating higher education to make it more affordable, accessible, and attainable, so you can reach your goals. Go from thinking, can I, to yes, I can, and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
This season, let your shoes do the talking. Designer Shoe Warehouse is packed with fresh styles that speak to your whole vibe without saying a word. From cool sneakers that look good with everything to easy sandals you'll want to wear on repeat, DSW has you covered. Find a shoe for every you from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, New Balance, and more. Head to your DSW store or visit DSW.com today.